If you're looking for a DM strategy that will blow up your high-ticket business, then this video is for you. Because every coach that I talk to says the same thing over and over again, which is I need more leads. And my answer to that is no, you don't. Because you're sitting on tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers that already know you, like you, and trust you. But the only issue is you're just not having conversations with them. And real quick, if you don't know me yet, my name is George Nita. I'm the founder and CEO of DMsetting.com, and over the past 4 years, we've generated over $50 million specifically from DM strategies for people such as Jeremy Miner, Matt Gray, Dean Graziosi, the Onuha brothers, and many others. And they've all been able to blow up their DM sales after implementing the 3 steps that I'm about to walk you through in this video. So let's talk about the first step, which is generating the actual conversation. The issue here is most coaches, they post every single day, they're consistent with the content, but then the issue is they just wait. They wait for leads to magically show up in their DMs, and then they wonder why their setter has 10, 15, 20 conversations a day. And to put this in perspective, I'm just going to give you an example. So we have a client that we recently onboarded. They're doing incredibly well. They're doing about $500,000 a month, mainly through a VSL call funnel. And over the years, they've accumulated an audience of 700,000 followers between Instagram and Facebook. And at the time of us coming on board, from that 700,000 person audience, I kid you not, they were booking 2 to 3 calls a day. Now we came in and we did 2 things. The first one is we helped them get an inbound content cadence going because they didn't really have anything in place. They weren't utilizing CTAs to their audience on their stories. So we helped them implement a structure when it came to that so that we can generate inbound conversations from those followers. And the second thing that we did that I'm a huge fan of personally, and we always do on all the client accounts, is warm outbounds, which is going into the followers list and messaging all those people, starting conversations with them so we don't just have to rely on the people that respond to our inbound call to actions. We can go out there and create our own opportunity. Now, about a month later, at the time of recording this video, we went from 2 to 3 calls a day to now on average booking 10 to 12 every single day. That's a 4 to 5x on the amount of calls that they were booking just by being proactive and going out there and having a very simple, very basic that I'm just about to walk you through here in a second, content cadence in place, and then actually initiating conversations with the followers. And mind you, those 10 to 12 calls that I mentioned are qualified sales calls booked on the closer's calendars. And those are additional qualified sales calls that I didn't have to spend money for. Those calls were just sitting there in their audience untouched, and all we had to do was just go out there and be proactive and initiate conversations with them. So here's how this actually works. You have 2 channels for generating conversations, which is inbound DMs and warm outbound, which is messaging your followers. I'm going to walk you through bird's eye view, very simple process, how to go about both of those different ways of generating DMs. So the first one, inbound DMs, you're going to have 2 types of call to actions. You're going to have a free resource call to action, which is a freebie. It can be your VSL, it can be YouTube videos, it can be PDFs, group coaching calls. It can really be anything, so you don't have to overthink this. And then the second type of call to action here is a more direct, more intent-based call to action. Obviously, this is going to be more salesy, but you're going to get in return higher intent leads from those direct, more intent-based call to actions. I'm sure you've seen them, you know what I'm talking about, which is the hey, I just opened 5 spots for this thing, DM me if you want in, etc., etc. Everyone does them, and they are great when you don't overdo them, right? So that brings me to the posting cadence, which what I recommend all the clients do, this is as simple as it gets, is every 2 to 3 days you do a story call to action, every 2 to 3 days you do a feed post call to action, and then as a rule of thumb, you don't want to do more than 1 direct call to action a week because then you risk burning out your audience and you don't really want to do that. And then this typically performs best when you post it on stories, right? So that's pretty much it. You don't have to overcomplicate it, especially if it's your first time having a big audience, trying to monetize it through DMs. Don't hire a fancy marketing manager. Don't try to spend money on ads. Just do the basics because as Hormozi says, advanced people never not do the basics. And this is as basic as it gets, and it works incredibly well. Now, when it comes to outbound DMs, this is where you reach out to your new and existing followers, to your story views, to the people that like your post, and I call them warm outbounds. And the reason you're going to hear me over and over and over again refer to them as warm outbounds is because those are warm leads. Those are followers, those are people that already know you, they've seen your face, they've seen your content before, they know your name, so they're not cold, right? Which is why I call them warm outbounds. And when you go out there and you start messaging those people, if you compare the response rate to a cold person that has never heard about you before versus a DM to a warm outbound, and when you go out there and you message those people, they're obviously going to respond at a much higher response rate. And for me personally, this is by far the #1 best way to generate DMs and conversations without more marketing efforts. You literally don't have to do anything. You just need to get your DM setters to initiate conversations with your followers, because when it comes to all the call to actions, all the marketing, all the ad spend, anything else that you might do to try and generate conversations, you simply cannot predict how many DMs you're going to get from those specific actions. But you can predict when you do 100 outbounds and you do it over and over and over again and you start gathering data, you're going to be able to predict that you're going to get a certain number of responses for every 100 followers that you message. And I really like that because I like controlling the inputs and I like controlling the numbers. And this is what warm outbound offers. This is what it gives you. Now, bottom line here, before we move on to the next thing, is you don't want to rely on one or the other. You always want to have a mix of the 2 strategies. When you're starting out, I think the best one is 40 to 60% coming from inbound DMs, 50 to 60% of new conversations coming from outbound DMs. There's a couple of examples here on the screen. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time going through this. I'm sure you're familiar with it and how it works, and you've seen it before, done a million times. The most important thing for you right now is you take this and you just implement. So that's the second step that we're going to talk about, which is converting those DMs into calls booked. So now you've got conversations coming in. You got your inbounds from your content, you got your outbounds from your setters. But most coaches and DM setter teams still struggle because they cannot take those conversations and actively convert them into booked calls in a predictable and smart and efficient way. And for example, what I mean by this is if you have leads coming in from your call to actions or your outbounds, but your setters drop the ball and they start treating the conversation as an interrogation, or if you don't have the right assets in place, such as voice notes or selfie videos to handle certain objections or questions that the leads might have, all this effort is for nothing. Now we have a very specific framework that we use in those conversations to make sure they don't die after 3 messages. Okay, so I just pulled up the framework with all the different steps that we're taking leads through, and the first one is the country qualification. Now, if you're running DM ads, for example, and you're getting a bunch of inbounds from the US, considering that's the main market that you target, and that's fine, you might be able to skip this step. But if you're also doing organic, then there's a likelihood that a lot of those organic people that you're getting, the followers, the views, the likes, they're not going to be from your ideal countries. They're going to be, a lot of them are going to be from third world countries. So this is why the first thing that we do here is the country qualification, where we ask them, hey, just to make sure this is going to work for you in the first place, what are you currently based out of? That also allows you to have a more efficient DM process, because if someone's from a third world country, then we're just not going to continue the conversation with them. We only want to focus on the good leads that we know have buying power, that are in the main location that you serve. Now, immediately after that, we're going to ask them about their motivation. So what is it about this specific business model that sparked your interest? What is it that's causing you to want to learn more about how X, Y, and Z work? And what this does, it allows us to kind of get an idea of their current situation, maybe some of their goals they have, maybe some of their pain points, but it also allows us to have a very smooth, basically effortless transition into explaining the business model, which is probably one of the most important things that we do throughout this framework. Now, the way we do this is we do it through a voice note, and the way we frame this is, for example, if you're selling Amazon FBA, right? If you're helping people get into Amazon FBA, we would ask something along the lines of, right after we got their motivation, hey, do you know anything about how Amazon FBA works, or would you like me to give you a quick breakdown? And when you do this, when you ask this, what's going to happen is, statistically on our end, 96% of people that respond to this question here say yes, because it creates the perception of value. No one's going to want to say no to an explanation, to something that's going to be valuable, that's going to give them more information, and that's why it works so well. So once we get the yes, we send over the voice note. This is purely an explanation. It's purely an educational voice note. You don't mention courses, programs, mentorship, support, help. You don't mention any of that. What you do is you just explain the business model, like the fundamentals of the business model, at a little bit more of an in-depth level than you do in your content, and you explain how they actually make money through that specific business model that you're selling. Or if you're not selling a specific business model, then you would just explain, for example, if you're helping other coaches grow their businesses, right? So it's more of a B2C or B2 solopreneur offer, then you would just explain how your approach and your strategy is different. So the framing of this would be, yeah, so what I've learned over the years working with X amount of people is a lot of people do X, Y, and Z wrong, which is like the common things that the industry does. And what I found is when you make this change and you kind of explain the pillars of your offer or the kind of transformation that they go through, again, this is more for B2B, B2 solopreneur. That's what you want to do in this voice note. The majority of you watching this, you're likely running a B2C offer. So for B2C, keep it simple, educational, just explain the model. That's all you got to do. Now, what this voice note is going to do is it's going to do 2 things. So the first one is it's going to increase consumption. So more people are going to listen to it because it's not a big block of text. It's a voice note. It's easily digestible. So a lot more people are going to go through it. So you're going to get more consumption on it. That's number 1. Number 2 is because the voice note is educational and it provides value, or it creates the impression or the perception of value, what happens is it gets them bought in to the specific opportunity that you just explained. And because they're more bought in right now, they're much more likely to continue getting back to you through all of the other steps of the conversation that you're going to take them through. So that's the voice note. Immediately after that, we go into current situation and desired situation. So for current situation, you basically want to understand what they do for work right now, what are their current pain points, what is it about their job that doesn't allow them to reach the goals that they have. And in desired situation, what I always want to do is I want to get a tangible goal. So when I say tangible, what I mean is I want to get a dollar amount from this person. Is it 5K a month? Is it 7K, 10, 12, 50, 100, right? If you're selling B2B, B2 solopreneur, what is the specific dollar amount that they want to get to? Because once you have this information and you have this number here, you can keep them accountable, because this is what they said they wanted. So then it's your job to keep them accountable. If they're delaying or if they're ghosting, then you have an extra point of leverage that you can use in the conversation to get them back on track, and again, to advance them through the conversation, which also, by the way, allows us to do a soft financial qualification here. So for example, if someone's a student, then you're going to find out right here in current situation. If someone's unemployed or is a single parent, then you're going to get clues that could tell you whether this person's qualified and worth sitting on a closer call or not. So immediately after this, is once we get their dollar goal amount, we're gonna send what I call a results video. And this is gonna be a selfie video from you as the creator. Again, you record it once, you can use it forever. And what you're gonna do in this video is you're gonna showcase your own results. So for example, let's say you're doing Amazon, as I said before, you would go into your Amazon seller dashboard and be like, hey, here are my results on like my Amazon products or sales or stores or whatever from the past 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, last year, whatever it is. Any sort of results that you can share that are your own results. This is what you want to do in the first 30 seconds or so of this video. The second thing that you want to do once you show those results is you want to flip the camera and go into your client community. So maybe you're keeping it in Discord, Slack, Circle, School, whatever it is. And you want to go to your wins chat or to your client results chat. And you want to start scrolling through it and just picking random client results and be like, hey, look at Mary here that just did 10K in her first month or in her second month. And look at Jaden here that just got his first order. And look at this person and that person that achieved X, Y, and Z results. So that's what you want to do here. And then you just cut it off, right? And what this does is it shows to those people and it proves to them that this is real. Or the number one hesitation that they have is always going to be, does this actually work? Is this real? So this video does exactly that. That basically tells them, hey, like this is possible. I've done it. There's real people in the community doing it. And you have this goal, which is achievable. Immediately after the video, we send a call proposal also through a voice note. So you can see we use voice notes and videos pretty heavily here. We have voice notes for all sorts of different objections, but that's going to be something that we covered in another video. So back to the call proposal voice note. This is going to be 15 to 20 seconds long. You don't want to make it longer than this. And then you just invite them on a call, basically is what you do here. So, hey, do you think it'd be helpful if I were to pair you up with my lead advisor, with my right-hand guy, so I can walk you through the ins and outs of how everything works and explore how this specific opportunity, Amazon FBA, could help you get closer to your goals or could help you reach your goals over the course of the next whatever time frame your program is. So again, you just record this once. You don't have to do this for every single lead. You record it once, you use it forever. And then immediately after the call proposal, obviously the people that say yes right now at the time of recording this video, based on our millions and millions and millions of data points in the DMs, we have about an 80% conversion rate here. So about 80% of people say yes to the call proposal, and obviously we send them a booking link. And then from the booking link or the application link in some cases, so they'd fill out the application or they'd fill out the questions on the booking form, they book a call, and that's it. So that's the framework. And when you get your setters to follow this, and mind you, this has been proven on our end on over 5 million individual conversations that we've used those frameworks on and that we have data behind. So when you get your setters to use this, you're going to start noticing conversations go from dying after 3 messages to actually converting into qualified sales calls booked. But here's the next thing. How do you actually measure progress and know whether it is actually working and you're making progress or not? Which brings me on to the third thing that we're going to talk about, which is tracking the data that matters. Because here's the thing. Most coaches have zero visibility into what's actually happening in their DM. They might track how many calls they got booked in a week, but they have no idea what resulted in those calls in that specific week and what to do if that number falls below a certain level or goes above a certain level. They don't know what to attribute to that change. And reality is, as they say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Now let me show you why this matters. If I were to tell you, hey, I'll show you how to get your DM setters to book 10 qualified sales calls a day every single day, you're gonna say, hey, that's amazing, show me how, right? Well, what if I told you that at the same time, you're gonna need a team of 8 DM setters on your team that are gonna have 500 individual conversations with 500 individual leads on a daily basis in order for you to make that happen? It's not so great anymore, is it? Because when you look at it this way, you realize you're only booking about 2% of your leads in, which is horrendous. It's really bad. It should be closer to 10 to 12% when you're doing things right, which is why numbers and KPIs matter so much. So there's 2 things you need to understand here. The first one is the lead to call booking ratio. So whenever you have a lead, which is a conversation, right? It's either an inbound message or an outbound response. So not an outbound message, but an outbound response. Because when you message 100 people, you're not going to get 100 responses. By default, that's not 100 conversations. You might only get 30 to 40 to 50 of those people, which is, by the way, excellent response rate to actually get back to. So your lead to book call ratio, bare minimum, should be at 10%. If you're below 10%, whatever it is that you're doing in DMs, you're not following what I just said, then your DM process just sucks. I promise you, if you're below 10%, there's nothing else that you need to focus on. It's not more leads, it's not better content, it's nothing else than just your DM process. You need to get your DM process to convert at a minimum of 10% from lead to booked call ratio. And number 2, there's a series of very important metrics that you want to track on a daily basis that are going to tell you whether things are working or not. So here are the metrics that we track across over 70 setters that work for our clients. Okay, so the first one is outbound conversations. As you would imagine, we track how many outbounds they actually did on that day. The second one, immediately after that, is outbound responses. So how many of those people that we messaged actually got back to us. The third one is inbound conversations. So how many messages did we have inbound that came through for that setter based on their lead distribution on that specific day. Immediately after that, we have our follow-ups. We're very, very heavily focused on follow-ups. Then we track calls proposed, links sent, calls booked. And then last but not least, we track total qualified calls booked for the day. Now, I like to split those metrics between kind of like 2 different buckets. So you have your front-end metrics, which is everything that happens before booking a call. It's this section right here. It's those metrics right here before booking a call. This is what happens. And you want to get clear on this. because it's going to allow you to know what your booking ratio actually is. Then when it comes to tracking calls booked, we don't actually just stop at that. We track everything that happens on the back end after the call was booked as well, because that's going to allow us to see how well a setter is actually performing from a sales standpoint, not just from a calls booked standpoint. And what I mean by that is we have them report how many sets were scheduled on the closers' calendars for that specific day, obviously from their own sets, how many of those were taken, and then how many of those were closed. And on top of that, we also have them report their revenue, their new cash, and then eventually their recurring cash as well. So this is what a DM Setter end of day report might look like. It's not just conversations and calls booked, which is what I see a lot of people doing. We go at length with those metrics because it allows us to calculate the most important thing, which is the conversion on the front end, because the conversion on the front end is going to dictate the throughput that you then have on your back end and total calls booked, qualified calls booked, but then also people that actually remain on the calendar, people that show up, and then deals that you get. So now you have the full picture. You know how to generate DM conversations, you know how to convert them into qualified calls booked, and most importantly, you know what metrics you need to track that tell you whether the process is working or not. But here's the thing, none of this is going to work if you don't have the right people in the right seats that are going to run this thing for you. So if you're watching this and you're thinking that you need the people to actually do this for you, then that's exactly what we do over at dmsetting.com. We recruit, we train, we manage your DM setting team, so this system runs every single day without you having to be involved in it. So if you want to learn more, click the first link in the description, book a call with me, and I'll walk you through the entire system.